Welcome to our presentation about the concept of the Olympic Games, and today we're going to talk about the concept, the values, the target audience, theories and storytelling that we can see throughout the Olympic Games.
This is the actual concept of the Olympic Games that we found out through our research, and after this we started our analysis to look at the concept whether it's a strong one or not. This is the motto of the Olympic Games. It's faster, higher, stronger, together. Before it used to be without the together, but then in 2021 it was added because it really adds the meaning to the whole concept, and the whole motto really fits for the concept. And as we learned, each strong concept should be able to be communicated in a very simple and inspiring one-liner, but we saw that the Olympic Games already have their motto, which already stands out as a very strong line.
So now we're going to talk about the core values of the Olympics. And the Olympics are officially built around three core values of excellence, friendship, and respect. According to IOC, they are the foundation for Olympicism, and the WOA explains them as striving to do your best, using the sport to build mutual understanding, and also showing respect for yourself, others, rules, and the environment. The first value that we're going to look at is excellence. It's all about athletes performing at the highest level possible, and it's not all about just winning, but also about personal effort and participation, and also becoming the best version of yourself. A clear example here are a qualification system that select the best athletes globally, and also Olympic competition, which is really strongly linked to records and personal bests and historic performances. We can also see a weaker point where excellence can become too focused on results and pressure, while it's supposed to be about the athletes enjoying themselves and ethics and fair play, while not just solely focusing on winning. The IOC Code of Ethics and anti-doping rules show us also that the Olympic system has to actively protect its integrity. And according to the World Anti-Doping Agency, education about anti-doping is necessary to protect the fair play and level playing field. Next, we're going to look at friendship. It's all about uniting people across national and political and cultural boundaries. It's also about using sport to build understanding and overcoming differences. And it's also linked to harmony and peace. A good examples here are the Olympic truce, which is described as a tradition that is aimed at friendship, peace, and understanding through sport. Another example that we found during our research was the Olympic Village, which is the place where athletes are staying throughout the entire competition, and they're living pretty much under the same roof. We can also see the weaknesses here, that sometimes the friendship can become more symbolic than actually real. The Olympics represent themselves as a space of unity, but large global events a lot of the time still involve politics and conflict and exclusion. So while the Olympics are celebrating inside different stadiums, the people on the outside are experiencing harm and exclusion. And last but not least, we're going to look at respect, which is all about fair play, unity, rules, inclusion, and treatments of others. It's also described as respect for yourself, your body, others, rules, and the environment. And the Olympic Charter also states that our rights and freedoms should be easily secured without discrimination. One example here is IOC's growing focus on human rights, where they have a strategic framework which makes the Olympics responsible for human dignity and non-discrimination. Another great example that we found is that the Paris 2024 Olympics were the first games in history that had full gender parity across the field. This is probably also the area where the gap between values and reality is the biggest. Even though the IOC has now the human rights framework, human rights groups such as Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch have openly criticized the Paris 2024 Olympics due to bans of hijabs for French athletes, and they also raised concerns about freedoms. Next, we're going to look at our main target groups of the Olympics. Through our research, we found out that the target audience is very, very broad, and they are not focusing on only certain group of people, but they are focusing on sport fans who want to follow elite sports, but also national audiences who connect through pride and identity, young people, because the IOC has specifically stated that the future of the games relies on young people and this audience, and also they are focusing on sort of non-traditional viewers that are more focused on, for example, the opening and closing ceremonies, the storytelling, social media, and other formats than the sport itself.
So we also looked into some theories and models that we learned and they apply to this. We had some criteria that every strong concept should have. It's being meaningful, enduring, distinctive, simple, imaginative, and have narrative strength. And we looked at each of these elements and rated them if they are strong enough. When it comes to being meaningful, we think this concept is very strong because it's clearly linked to deep values like peace, respect, and global unity, which clearly shows that it's more than just entertainment. When it comes to being enduring, we also think it's extremely strong because the Olympics have existed obviously for a long time, and the concept can be also translated into many different editions, sports, or cities and ceremonies. Being distinctive is also quite strong because no other sports have the same scale of global symbolic unity. However, some parts of the event experience can become predictable because many large-scale events now also use similar spectacle elements as the Olympics. When it comes to being simple, it's fairly strong as well because ideas like excellence, unity, and peace for sport are quite easy to communicate. The problem is only that the full concept of the Olympism is a bit abstract, and also the motto that they have, it's really simple, but the philosophy behind it is much more complex. Then imaginative is very strong because the rings, torch relay, opening ceremony, the medals or flags are very known elements of the Olympics and all speak like to the imagination of people. And narrative strength is also strong because the Olympics naturally create stories of hope, rivalry, sacrifice, and many more. And this also fits what was said in the lecture, that words and stories create worlds. And to conclude on this, the Olympic concept scores very high on meaningfulness, endurance, imagination, and narrative strength. And its weaker point is not the core idea itself, but the challenge of translating such a broad ideal into the personal and equally deep experience for every audience segment, basically. We also had the experience model that says the difference between stage and consumer experience, where the stage experience is what the organization designs, and the consumer experience is the inner reaction of the audience, and then is distinguished between basic, memorable, and transforming experience. When it comes to the stage experience for the Olympics, there will be all the venues, ceremonies, music, national symbols, and basically everything that is done by the organization. And for the consumer experience, it could be feeling proud when your country wins, or feeling inspired by some of the stories of athletes, or just feeling emotionally connected during the ceremonies or the sports. And by this we can judge that the Olympics usually produce memorable experiences very well, because people remember the iconic races, the ceremonies, or the wins for a very long time. And in some cases they even form transforming experiences. For example, if children decide to start a sport after the Olympics, or people change how they see disabled people after the Paralympic, that could be considered as transforming experiences. but not all of them or not every part is transforming. A lot of the experiences just stay at the memorable level rather than life-changing. And we also looked into if we can recognize storytelling aspects in the Olympic concept. We think that the Olympics use storytelling all the time, even when people do not notice it consciously. And as the International Olympic Committee says, the Games are not only about the results, but also about the athlete journeys, the human struggles, or global unity.
We can find storytelling mainly through the athletes themselves. It's all about their personal stories, for example, comeback after an injury, or a small and unknown athlete winning, for example, in their sport, or some personal sacrifices that the athletes have made, leading to their success. Here you can see two examples that we have chosen, which is for Alyssa Liu and Ilya Malinin, who are both figure skaters from the US national team. So when we look at Alyssa, she retired in 2022 because of a burnout, and she returned a couple of years ago to the sport, and this year she won the Olympic gold medal. On the other hand, we have Ilya Malinin, who entered the 2026 Olympics as the favorite for the gold medal, and he led the short program, but he collapsed during the free skate because he had so much pressure on him from everyone around the world and the country, that he finished 8th.
We also want to reflect on the storytelling to see how successful it is, and we see it's very strong in emotional impact, memorability, and global relevance. But it also has some critical parts, such as that the storytelling is mostly happening through media. The people inside the stadiums usually don't feel that much as a part of the story, and it's much weaker at the live event itself. It's also focused too much on the winning. They often ignore the failures, the efforts, or the personal growth of the athletes. And the concept, as we said already before, is very broad and abstract. It has very strong values as the peace or respect, but it's usually not that visible in the concrete experience. So people understand it, but they don't always feel it directly. And some improvements they could use for the storytelling: they could make it a little bit more experiential, to move only from telling the story to letting the people actually experience them. They could create some athlete focus zones in the fun areas, which would create stronger emotional impact. They could also broaden the definition of success, show a bit more from the failure or the comebacks or personal growth of athletes, which would make it feel more relatable and also create a stronger emotional connection. And they could also translate the values into visible experiences. They could create some mixed cultures in the fan areas that people could experience, or also make some storytelling installation in the fan areas about athletes from different countries. And like this, the values would be also felt, not just communicated. And this is also a part of the Imagineering X-sheets of the D-phase, where we actually design the experiences based on the values.
So in conclusion, the Olympic concept has a very strong foundation in their core values, and they also have the power to create a very strong shared experience. However, their concept is not exactly flawless. The key weakness is the gap that they have between the values they are trying to communicate to the audience and the real impact of hosting the actual Olympic Games. So the concept is powerful, but the credibility of it really depends on whether the values are also actually being delivered in practice. And yeah, we want to thank you for your attention and for that.